You know who's been really gosh darn good? Mattias Norlinder. And in fact, he's been so good that the praise from different media outlets and different people in Sweden has really been notable. We'll get into all that in this video here today. Let's talk about Mattias Norlinder, the Montreal Canadiens prospect who was drafted in the 2019 NHL Entry Draft. A little bit of a history lesson here. Norlinder actually wasn't drafted the first time around. He was drafted in his draft plus 1 year. He was born in April of 2000, which means that he was passed up in the 2018 NHL Entry Draft, and when he was drafted in 2019, he was actually taken in the third round by the Montreal Canadiens, 64th overall. He was a pick that a lot of Canadiens fans were taking a look at and saying, okay, why did we get this guy? He's an overager. He's not necessarily a player that a lot of people saw being drafted in this spot. And overall, on the board, there were other notable names that people were kind of looking at and saying, okay, why didn't we take Alexander Campbell? Or why didn't we take Albin Greva? Or why didn't we take Ronnie Attard or Pistola or Nathan Legaré? Instead, they get Norlinder, who's an overage left-handed defenseman playing out of Sweden. And he's a guy who played in the Super Elite in his draft plus 1. He was pretty good, 21 points in 30 games, but recently, though, in the Allsvenskan, which is pretty much the AHL in Sweden, Mattias Norlinder has been good. Really, really gosh darn good for Modo. In fact, let's take a look at this clip right here. This is Harold Luckner, the expert and color commentator for the Modo Hockey Club. He had this to say about Mattias Norlinder. He is one of the best, if not the best, in regards to skaters that has ever come out of Modo, with Modo's history. That's saying a lot. Okay, well, how much of that is that saying? Well, let's take a look at who's come out of Modo throughout their history. Henrik and Daniel Sedin, Peter Forsberg, Marcus Naslund. Yeah, there are some really good names on that list. And the color commentator, quote-unquote expert, talking about Norlinder, says that he is one of the best, if not the best, out of that class. Now, obviously, that is a loaded compliment, and it's not really something that you should be saying about any 19-year-old. Hey, he's pretty much a guaranteed Hall of Famer. Okay, that's not what we're going to go after here. But what we're going to go after is the fact that Norlinder has been so good that his not being drafted in 2018 status honestly doesn't really matter anymore. Right now, Norlinder is at 10 points in 17 games played in the Allsvenskan. He's a 19-year-old guy, he's a defenseman, and he's up there with a good amount of points. On Modo, he's 10th in scoring. There are a lot of players who are getting points on that team, but Mattias Norlinder is somebody who is just contributing to the offense through and through, and he's doing a really good job doing so. In the entire Allsvenskan, Norlinder is in a tie for 11th in the league in defenseman points. And if you change that to players who are under 20 years old, he's second in the league, and he has one of the best points per games. And it's not even just the numbers that stand out to you. Sure, he's got 10 points in 17 games, so what? It's the assists and the points that Norlinder is putting up. The guy only has 4 assists, but a lot of these assists have been absolutely spectacular. Recently, Mattias Norlinder had an absolutely crazy assist where the Modo player is down low in the right side corner. Norlinder is a left-handed defenseman, so he's up there on the left side point. Norlinder squeaks down towards the slot, and the pass comes his way. He takes it on the backhand, and he spins around, and with eyes in the back of his head, threads it right through the slot on the forehand as he spins around perfectly to the man in front, and he threads it right through like 3 guys, and then there's a shot on goal, and it's in. Norlinder has had an incredible showcase of skating, skill, and overall poise in the Allsvenskan this season that you're taking a look at this player and you watch him and you go, That guy's not 19. No way that guy's not 19. What the heck? He's playing so mature for his age, and this is one of the things that people were saying about him last year, too. Sure, he wasn't drafted in the 2018 NHL Entry Draft, but he plays like he was, and he plays like he should have been. And that's why the Canadiens took this player in the 3rd round. Mattias Norlinder today is a player that a lot of people can look at and say, this guy has top 4 potential. Legitimate top 4 NHL potential. And when you're taking a look at a 3rd round player, that's not something you get every day. And sure, Jayden Struble is another Canadiens defenseman who has top 4 potential too, who was drafted earlier. But Struble is younger, Struble is stronger, and Struble, in my opinion, is much more of a long-term project. He's going to Northeastern, he's doing his thing in college, he's going to take a few more years to develop. Norlinder, on the other hand, is already playing pro hockey, and he's playing with guys who, honestly, may be able to play in the NHL today. Last season in the playoffs, Norlinder was playing with Tobias Enstrom, and they were the pairing up there on the first pair. He was doing a really good job sticking along with Enstrom too. And for a guy who was then turning 19, I think that's a really, really good trait. And sure, I can wax poetic about Norlinder all day. I can say the great things about his skating, his offensive abilities, but his defense isn't that bad either. Like, sure, you take a look at a player like this and you say, okay, he may be only all offense, but if you watch Norlinder, he's a pretty solid player in his own zone. And he does the right things, and he does make sure that he's not being a liability in his territory. And I think that's a really good thing to have, especially for a young 19-year-old guy who's given all this ice time and who's given all this opportunity in Sweden's second-tier hockey league. Do I see Norlinder immediately becoming a top 4 defenseman next season with the Habs? No, not necessarily. I could see him using some time in Laval. I could see him using some time probably in the top 6 or the 3rd pairing in the Habs core down the line before he really establishes himself in his prime as an NHL top 4 defenseman. But in my opinion, the ceiling is there, and to me, the ceiling is much more guaranteed than, honestly, a Jayden Struble. And Struble is really good. I really like Struble. But from what we're seeing so far, in my opinion, Norlinder is just a safer bet to make the league. And that's taking into account the fact that he wasn't drafted last year, and the fact that he was a year older when he was drafted, and the fact that he is 19. But just like Harold Luckner has said, he's been really, really good. He's one of the best in regards to skating players that has ever come out of Modo. And with Modo's history, that's saying a heck of a lot. You know who else was with Modo? Hey, Victor Hedman was with Modo. Okay, I'm probably gonna calm the brakes down a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about that, and we'll give a little bit of a disclaimer on that comment. Sure, you could take a look at that comment from Modo's color commentator and expert and say, okay, Norlinder is on pace to being better than Hedman, better than Forsberg, better than the Sedins, but you got to take a look at it. Modo wasn't in the Allsvenskan for long. They were in the SHL, they were in the Elite Screen for pretty much their entire existence up until their relegation to the Allsvenskan a few years ago, and at that point, the competition changes, the overall tier and the level of hockey changes, and they're not necessarily as good as they were a long time ago. So sure, yes, Modo isn't a better team today than they were back when they had Forsberg, the Sedins, and Naslund. But hey, if you're saying that out of the entire history of Modo, Norlinder is the best skater, and skater, I mean like player that's not a goalie, you know what I'm talking about, right? Then that's some pretty high praise, and Habs fans may take that the wrong way, because I know Habs fans like to overreact about their own players all the time. Don't worry, a lot of fan bases do that. You're not special, Habs fans, but yeah, some pretty good comments, don't you think? Mattias Norlinder, in my opinion, he's a top 4 defenseman at the NHL when he maxes out. I think he'll take a little bit of time to get there, more than Jayden Struble, but I think he's more guaranteed than Struble, in my opinion. So we'll see. I could be wrong. I could be entirely wrong, and I will admit if I'm wrong down the line, but I hope you enjoyed this video. Social that Troll Slay 9. I gotta get to class. I got marketing up in a few minutes here. And bye.